All right. It is it's afternoon where you're at. It's after lunch. What, 2 o'clock, right? You're central or are you Eastern? I can't remember.
Eastern. We're 3 o'clock here.
3 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. 9 o'clock here in Hawaii. So I haven't had my lunch yet. I'm feeling a little hungry. Looking at that picture of that beautiful animal behind you, and I'm salivating just a little bit.
Yeah, that's my motivation. I'm a big elk hunter, so yeah,
I know you
keeps me
are.
focused.
So with us today, I have Chase Hunter from Purofirst, right? Second generation restorer. Your grandpa wasn't in the business, was he?
Kind of third. My
Kind of
dad
third?
and grandmother actually started the business together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, tell me a little bit about Purofirst for those that don't know your organization as well. Where to get started? Where are you guys at today? What's going on there?
Yeah, so we are family business. My dad and grandmother started it together. Started off in the construction industry as Hunter and Associates Construction. My grandmother was a realtor, and they were doing houses and remodel type stuff, building new houses. Got into contract with the state for post offices. And
Okay.
so my dad was traveling all over the state. They positioned themselves really, really well because that's when, all the, what do you call it, like equality stuff. And so with my grandmother is a female owner, they positioned them really well for government contracts. So they did a lot of post office work throughout the state. And then my dad tells me that basically when I came along as a child, that he was tired of traveling all over the state 7 days a week, wanted to be home more, and that's when they actually got into the restoration industry. And so, kind of a slow transition, but this is actually our 30th year as Purofirst in the restoration industry. So,
Wow, 30 years. How old are you?
36.
Okay, so you were
Yeah.
6 years old.
Yeah, I was 6 years old. Yeah, and
Do you
so
have
and
any?
I
Go ahead.
Well, I've been involved. I tell everybody I was pretty much bred into this industry. So I mean, I can remember I was 13 years old, and every summer since I was probably 13-year old, I was working on our crews as a technician. Um, I don't know why my dad thought this was a good idea, but I'd be doing mitigations with crews, and it'd be late at night, and he'd just tell whatever crew I was with to take me home, and I'd actually spend the night with my crews because we were working late, and then he'd bring me a fresh pair of clothes the next day, and I'd be back to work. So yeah, I've seen it all from the top to the bottom.
It's funny how things that were normal 20 years ago are now like things that your parents would get called CPS on them for nowadays.
100%, yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then when did you guys join Pivot?
So I had to go back and ask my dad on this one. So we actually originally joined in 2010.
Oh wow.
Okay. We're either 29 or 2010. Couldn't remember exactly. We were in for a couple years, left for a year, and then we have been back on since 2014 to present. So we're like 12 to 13 years that we've been with Pivot. So long time.
And you guys make the choice to stay year after year. Why is that?
Yeah, so Pivot has been huge for us as a company, and really, I think for a couple of big reasons. One is just the detail in the numbers. Number one, to have that, that time every month that you just really sit down, review what's going on within the business from a financial standpoint. And then I think the second, and probably for us, one of the bigger things that keeps us in is the accountability and the people in our group that just kind of push you to that next level, hold you accountable. Because I know, at least speaking for myself, it's really easy when you don't have somebody to account to maybe get lazy or slack off on, what is something that, maybe doesn't have to be done tomorrow, but something that needs to be done that you can push off. And when you have the goals that are set by the group, and you have a group that every month is going, hey, are you meeting your goals? Are you working toward what you said you're going to work toward?
Yeah.
I think brings a whole level of accountability that otherwise we probably wouldn't have, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, and I'll say as the guy who has the pleasure of facilitating the group that you're in, there's like no room for mediocrity, right? If you
Oh
show
no,
up and you're like willing to take your foot off the gas,
yeah,
you're good, you know, and like in the most gentle and kind of that bro culture sort of way, right? Like you'll be reminded like there's no place for mediocrity here. You're here to
oh,
hammer
yeah,
down and get stuff done. So
yeah, and there's nothing held back. I mean, if they will call you out on your crap, and I personally appreciate that. I'm a real straightforward kind of guy, and
mhm.
tell it to me how it is, good or bad, and that's what I like about the group and about what we do.
Awesome. So, according to our most recent member progress report, Purofirst placed third place for revenue growth with a 52% increase, and fourth place for operating profits growth at 87%. Those are incredible numbers. Tell me a little bit about how like what led to the revenue growth and the operating profits growth. Like, where do you attribute the success to
Um, uh, really a couple things. I'll start with the revenue growth. So we started an initiative about 4 years ago to try to transition our company into more commercial business.
there?
And um, Larry out of Portland, Oregon, in our group with Kennedy Restoration does almost full commercial work and told us from the get-go, he said, hey, this is a long-term investment. He said it's going
Mhm.
to take a while to see it pay off. And he told us, he said, if you're lucky 3 years, probably plan on 5 years. And so
Mhm.
we made the decision, we're going to do it. We're going to make it happen. We're willing to make the investment. And we are, I guess this year kind of going into our 5th year of really focusing on our commercial.
Mhm.
And I would say that was the biggest change to our revenue growth. So we have now flipped our business to 60% commercial, 40% residential, and really that initiative over time um, has just finally come to pay off. And um, another thing that really helped, anybody who was on the East Coast last Christmas will remember very well about the freeze event that hit the
Mhm.
entire East Coast. I would say probably one of the biggest freeze events that we've seen in the past 30 years, at least
Wow.
while I've been in the business for sure.
Mhm.
Um, it was massive, and we with our partnerships and our foothold in the commercial business, we really saw it pay off because when the other vendors in our area weren't able to service their clients and turning their phones off, we were able to capture those commercial clients that were in basically drastic need from all the frozen pipes, and that was a huge driver to the revenue as well. Um, but yeah, I'd say the commercial side of it is really where we gained traction and really grew.
So now that you have everybody's attention by using one of the industry buzzwords, commercial, if there's somebody out there who's saying, you know what, Chase, I'm willing to make the investment, but I have no idea where to start.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell them? Like if somebody says, look, I want to diversify into commercial. What should I know? What should I be ready for?
Yeah, so at least from our experience in our market, it is a really tight knit group, and I think that's why it takes a long time to kind of get into it, get a foothold, and really take off. And where we found our success was getting involved in the local associations.
Hmm.
So like IFMA, NAA, or whatever your local apartment association is, um, and not just becoming a member, but really getting involved, get on the committees, get your way into a board position, and become more than just somebody knocking on the door, but somebody that's actually trying to benefit their industry in a positive way. And we found that really the best way to do that is in those associations and really getting involved in those. I'd say that's probably the biggest point, biggest easiest move to make. And then, on top of that, it's just consistency. It's so easy when you don't see your efforts pay off in 6 to 8 months to just kind of, throw your hands up and put it on the back burner. But when I say it took 3 years, I mean, it was a hard 3 years of investing time and money and energy into this industry before we really saw it pay off in any type of substantial way. So don't get discouraged easy. If you want to see it pay off, it at least in our experience, it'll take a while.
Yeah. So I would imagine probably 18 months in, you're sitting there going, did we make a good decision?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it was like, wow, this is getting deep, and it's not a cheap game to play. I mean, they're always asking for, join this and sponsor this, and it's, it gets overwhelming, and you got to really fill out, where you're going to get your most exposure. And it's a tricky game to play, but it is an investment that has definitely paid off for us, and we're happy we made. So.
Awesome. What questions do you have for me? Is there anything rattling around in your head that you're like, you know what, I'd like to ask Anthony that question? I always feel like when I tee up these interviews and everything, it's always me asking questions, and I feel like it's fair to give you a stand at bat if you want.
Well, before let me think a minute here on the questions for you, but I did want to go back and talk about our operating profit growth too.
Yeah.
Because I want to give some credit out here, not only to Pivot and what they've helped us do, but also to my father, Rob Hunter. So I wish I could take claim for this, but two things. So one, Pivot really pushes systems and having kind of the underlying things in place in your business that drives your company forward and then also sets you up for growth. So, kind of a two-part thing with operating profits and growth. And my dad, he loves to take the claim that he's just a demo redneck. But anybody who knows him knows that he's probably the smartest redneck you've ever met. And he has a true gift of making very complicated things simple. And the systems that he has put in place in our company are 100% one of the biggest reasons that we have great profits, and that our operating profits have actually grown with our revenue growth, because he really did a focus on our systems that really, the more we grow, and this is all kind of circumstantial up to a certain point, but the more we grow, really the more efficient we get with the systems that he put in place. And a lot of that is because of we are able to maintain kind of our underlying, let's call it operating expenses for overhead with our growth model. And we were able to grow by roughly 52%. And I think the year before was like 24%, and still keep our same operating model as far as personnel. We added 2 new people in the meantime, 3 new people in the meantime to handle the growth. So a lot of those, operating profits are due to really quick growth and us kind of being understaffed. But even now today that, we're kind of properly staffed for our growth, we're still holding really good operating profits. And that's because of the systems that were put in place early. And so, Pivot has helped us a lot with that, because it's so easy to get caught up in the daily grind and not think about those, those little things that will really play effect, 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, with really, really good operating models that, especially that are expandable. So I want to give him credit for that, because if he hadn't laid that groundwork down 25 plus years ago, we definitely wouldn't be where we are today. And it's just because we've been doing the same thing for like 25 years, I think, is our operating model, and it's been able to hold with us, and we hope to continue to grow with it. So we'll see what the future brings, though. I'm excited. But
It's funny whenever somebody asks your dad a question, he'll sit there and he'll think about it for a second, and his responses are always like one or two sentences, very brief, right?
yeah,
But some of the most thought provoking, right? And usually the follow up question is something akin to, "So wait, that's it?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's kind of it. Yep,
yeah,
that's it." And
yeah,
and people walk away almost bewildered and confused sometimes, and then like 2 days later, they're like, "Frick! Oh my gosh, that guy is gold! Like, what a wonderful idea!"
yeah,
But yeah, I'll echo that sentiment too. One of the things that I've appreciated about your father is his ability to like just keep it simple.
yeah. Keep it
Nothing's
simple.
ever complex for him, and I
No,
appreciate that. I feel like that's a gift for sure.
yeah, no, I definitely like that. So, anyway, so back to the questions that I have, or a question that I have for you, and um, as a young leader in the industry, this is some stuff I'm trying to figure out along my way. And you get to see other groups, and
Mhm.
I don't know anybody in the industry that knows more people than you do. I think I don't know if there's anything you're not involved in, but as somebody that's in my position, a young leader in the industry that's trying to grow and trying to build connections, um, what are what would be a great piece of advice you would give to somebody in my position um, to grow with the industry as it continues to change and evolve?
That is an interesting question, and I kind of like you talked about, your revenue growth being a combination of, like strategy and luck. I think, because the luck side, right? Like we can't predict when the next big freeze is. And I will say that overwhelmingly in my professional career, I have had a lot of luck, and that has created a lot of opportunity for me. Now, I still make the choice to look at it and make decisions and work hard, but
Mm-hmm.
some of it is just circumstantial and being in the right place at the right time. I often reflect back on the time I spent with Tim Fagan over at Coaches, and the simple fact that he looked at me at 24 years old, had long hair and gauged ears, and it's just this heavy metal guy from the Midwest, and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
"I want you to open my Lansing branch." And I'm like, "Oh, me? Really? Are you serious, man? Like, are you drunk? What's going on?" And he's like, no, I see something here, and I want to invest. And I'm like, wow, if he had not made that decision, right, like my life would be different, like
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed. And I think the other thing, so that's like, hey, some of this you just can't control, and so you got to be open to that, right? Like open to the risk of it. On the flip side of things you can control, one foundational pillar that I try and operate on is I ask first how I can benefit a situation. I don't often, and my wife will echo this, like I don't think about what the benefit for me is often. Like sometimes I do, right? I'm human. But a lot of the times I'm like, okay, I have an interest here. I'm passionate about it. How can I help? And just that simple drive of being willing to show up and give and work hard on behalf of industry causes or individual owners in their organizations or whatever it might be, has really created an open and honest dialogue between me and a lot of wonderful people. And I'm so thankful that, like your dad has his disposition. Like a lot of that comes from my father and how he looked at the world, and just like, hey, can we go hang a ceiling fan for somebody today and make their life better? And
Mm-hmm.
like, I just don't want to live in a world where that isn't a part of my life, right? Like, that's just got to be a part of who I am. Otherwise, I feel uncomfortable in my own skin almost.
Yeah, you get what you give, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Good advice. I appreciate it.
So long-winded answer, but I wanted to do right by your question. So
Yeah,
took a,
no, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate
yeah.
it.
Well, I'm going to wrap us down. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
Closing thoughts. If you're on the fence on getting into a peer group, like Pivot, I would recommend Pivot 100%. Obviously, we've been in it for 12 years and still finding benefit, but do it. Get involved. You won't regret it. And not only that, but you meet a lot of really good people that want to help you. And that's what I really like about this group. And we had the opportunity to get together with all the Pivot members at our last meeting, and it was really nice to meet a lot of the other companies or in other groups that we're not familiar with. And that was one of the biggest things I noticed, is that no matter who I met along any of the groups, everybody was just willing to help, willing to, dive into your business and learn about you, and, be there in any way you can. And I think that's really where the strength of Pivot and kind of what we're doing really benefits. It's in the community. So, yeah.
I would agree. I think sometimes as like the de facto marketing and sales guy for Pivot, like I don't really sell Pivot. I just inform people about Pivot. And then they, 90% of people are like, I see the value. And then I almost switch teams and I'm like playing defense. And I'm like, so tell me about how you would make a decision. Like I vet people pretty hard because I think what we have here is pretty special, right? And I don't, it takes one bad voice, one self-serving type of individual to kind of spoil it. And so I'm like, no, I'm gonna put my arms around this and protect this, right? Because it's special. It's worth defending in that way.
And as somebody who's involved, I appreciate that, because I mean it's an open book forum, and there's a lot of vulnerability that goes into being in this group, and if there's not that good trust, it can turn out bad. So I appreciate that diligence for sure. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again for taking the time to hop on a live with me and share from your experience, your story, telling the story of Purofirst. I think that everybody always enjoys a good origin story. But yeah, appreciate you and hope you enjoy the rest of your day over there in Louisville.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Right on. Take care. Aloha.
All right. See you, buddy.